it was real. My father was a fireman. You know,
Yeah.
and there were times he says, "You're getting in a little too deep. Are you sure you want to do that?" I said, "Dad, I'm just in the gambling business. I'm making a good
Yeah.
living. It's nice. It's easy. It's clean." You know, especially after I started out, it was a legitimate business.
Sure.
That brought me in with him, and Greg.
Sure.
So
Now,
there
let's
was a
talk
little bit
about-
of that.
Let's talk about that in terms of business side and business aspect and making money. People know, like Shylock, like what kind of points were you giving, like weekly, and how that kind of worked and tied
I'll
in
tell you,
hand
here's
in
how it
hand.
starts. Here's
Yeah.
how it all starts. Well, there was three basic racket businesses. The number business,
Yeah.
like every state takes now.
Yeah.
You can go to 7-Eleven. Okay, we had that before the state.
And just not to interrupt,
Yeah.
but a lot of people here, because a lot of Canadians, they might not know the numbers are actually kind of evolved into lottery, and they were based on the numbers from tracks.
Yes, the
and-
last three digits of the handle,
Yeah.
the total cash handle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's totally random. Nobody could ever figure
Yeah.
those out. So that's the lowest level. Most of us break into that, like I did. Then I got into the sports gambling business, which became very lucrative for me. Then, because people aren't paying, they have to borrow.
Yeah.
So they're really borrowing from me to pay me.
Yeah.
They're borrowing from Greg early on to pay me, but then I have my own money. So to answer your question, you can get anywhere from 1 point to 5 points. So if $1,000 loan is given to somebody, like say early on, I took 1,000 from Greg.
Yeah.
I would have to pay him $10 on that 1,000
Yeah.
per week.
Yeah.
I can charge anywhere up to $50, and they pay it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I typically charge 3 points,
Yeah.
$60, and they got to pay that forever until they give you the 1,000 back. And some of them, they just rather pay the 60 than hand you
Keep paying.
$1,000. So
Yeah.
it goes on for years.
Yeah.
I built up. I had 700,000 on the street at one point.
Wow.
You know, earning a point and a half. Because what happens is you become a Shylock to Shylocks. Like
Yeah.
Greg had 30 Shylocks under him.
Yeah.
So he was getting a point from them. They were getting 3, 4, 5 points. So now I had Shylocks under me as time went on, and I would get a point from them. They would get 3 points. So it's really a ton. You can make a ton of money in it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how many dirty words I'm allowed to use.
Oh, yeah,
But I asked, you know, one time I was having trouble in the Shylock business because I was a little soft on people.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, if they missed 1 week, all right, I'll see you next week. And Greg told me one time, he looked me in the eyes, and said, "You know why I'm a successful Shylock? Because I'm a scumbag.
Yeah.
You can't miss 1 week.
Yeah.
You miss 1 week, I'm coming to your house." You
And
know,
would you guys ever do it where if they mixed a week, they gave you something of greater value?
not really. I just had them catch up. I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't do what the IRS does.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
compound.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You missed 30 last week, you owe me 60 this week.
Yeah.
But you know, there were times like, you know, if you did the guy gave him a break, they come in and try to take a little care of you some way with
Sure.
a bottle of Dom Perignon. One guy gave $2,000 to go to Atlantic City.
Yeah.
He came home that night with 7,000.
Very good.
He
Game.
gave me my two back, and he wanted to give me another 1,000. No, thank you. I said, give me my 120.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to turn around. I remember I gave you the
Yeah.
extra.
Exactly. He's
I
not going to pay.
And
Yeah.
you know what else? He came back the next week for money.
Yeah.
I said, "What'd you do?" He says, I gotta have money from you. If I don't know that I got a juice payment or a big payment," he says, I get lazy.
Yeah.
I need to hustle. So
Yeah.
give me 2,000, please.
Yeah.
He just needed to have it, you know. So he comes once a week. It's crazy. But yeah, the Shylock
Yeah.
business. Greg was probably top 5 Shylocks in the whole.
Yeah, that's huge.
Top
Yeah.
5 easy.
Yeah,
Of all
and-
the families I'm talking.
And kind of to wrap up with the organized crime mob stuff, the Colombo family. A lot of people may know, going back to the original Godfather movie, that Joe Colombo
Yeah.
was the guy that was part of that league that was protesting
Yeah.
the movie. And I'll tell you, my own personal family, like my grandfather, they were from Sicily. They didn't like that movie. They were older, you know.
Yeah.
They're dead now. They're 100 years old.
Yeah.
But they hated that movie, and
The
it's so
Godfather,
weird
yeah.
how it's changed. It was always something that you never talk about,
Yeah.
and now it's on podcast. Isn't
Yeah,
it crazy
well-
how the world's changed?
But I'll tell you what, they had to get permission
Yeah,
from New York to make that movie.
To make the movie, yeah.
And if you look at, they don't use the word mafia once.
Yeah, and I haven't in this interview because
Yeah.
that's a word that I just never use.
Well, right.
Yeah,
You
personally,
know,
and only because like my mother, my grandfather, they
built
never
in.
wanted to use that word.
Built in,
So
right.
I always say mob or whatever.
Yeah, mob, and then amongst us, we said either Cosa Nostra
Yeah.
or in the English our thing, it's our thing.
Yeah.
This thing of
Yeah.
ours. We would call
Yeah.
it, like Greg, if he's teaching me, he would say this thing,
Yeah.
and every once in a while I'd say Cosa Nostra,
Yeah.
no drugs.
Yeah.
Even though going back to the rules, that was a rule that was broken.
That's interesting to
And,
talk
yeah.
about too, because there's an organization that's out of Italy now, and Dretta, or I don't know how they pronounce it, but they're
Oh.
big into drugs now.
No, yeah, who is that? There's a TV
Dretta
show
or
about it.
Dretta. Yeah, there was a guy that I was just reading the story this
Yeah.
morning. There was an interview. It popped up on
Yeah,
Google.
I know who you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
not that. It's not the Score was the Mexican one.
They had Gomorrah.
Go on, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
No, you don't mean
yeah,
that.
this is similar.
Okay,
This is,
yeah.
but it's,
No,
but
I haven't
it's
seen it
spelled
yet.
differently.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But in Italian organized crime, Cosa Nostra, there were obviously people that were involved in drugs,
Mhm.
but there was a rule you weren't supposed to. You wanted to talk about
Right. Well, yeah. It becomes do as I say, not as I do. They're telling you not to. Hypocrites that they are, they're opening the drawer and taking
They're taking
payments
the money.
from
Yeah,
drug dealers,
yeah.
then getting into themselves. That was our crew's downfall.
that? Yeah.
And it's all going to come out. It's pretty much public knowledge. Greg Jr. had a great idea back in the day to tax drug dealers.
Yeah. Great idea.
If you're out in the street selling drugs, you're bringing
Sure.
some to the family,
Oh yeah.
and that was gray area.
Sure. Even worse
You're
than
not out
that.
there doing. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're not out there doing it, but
Yeah.
we're the tough guys. We're running the streets. You're paying,
Yeah.
but the greed takes over.
Yeah.
If too many guys aren't paying, they get beaten. Then they get killed. Then you want now supply it because now you're going to make 5 times. You were making 50,000 a week. Now you're going to make 250 a week.
Sure.
We became like Scarface. Instead of a social club that you picture the movie Scarface. That club looked more like that. And then some guys start using it, and it sort of really caused problems. And Greg Jr. is going to get to tell his story someday, and
Sure.
it's interesting.
I was gonna say even worse than taxing the drug dealers. The show that you and I were on with Angelo DeCipio.
Yeah.
I was on there with George Anastasia. He had done a book called Gotti's Rules.
Yes.
And I managed Phil Baroni. Still managed, but doesn't do as much anymore. And I knew his family. I knew his dad really well.
Right.
And his father was a Gold Star detective. And I'm not saying anything out of school because this is stuff that his father was in the Gotti trial.
Right,
He had to
common
testify.
knowledge.
Well, this is common knowledge
Right.
on it. His father actually used to rob drug dealers using his
Right.
badge.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
did that a
that
lot
was-
with John Elite. They used to.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money robbing drug dealers.
Yep. We had guys
Yeah.
around us doing that.
Yeah.
And the thing was, what are they going to do? Go to the cops?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
So it's the same thing with the taxing them, but that's a rule. Obviously, what we talked about earlier, sleeping with. I wasn't the only one.
Sure.
There was shit going on. Sammy once told me that John Gotti was with Vanello Della Croce's daughter, and he was married, so that was taboo. Then Omerta, of course, guys that were talking, like the minute they get arrested.
Start
It's,
spilling.
So all these rules, and the family comes first. You're never
Yeah.
supposed to go against the boss. I'll go back to John. He goes and kills the boss. There was
Yeah.
no approval there. Then Vicarina decides he wants to take over the family. There was no approval there. He just decided to do it. Bodies start turning up. The split happens. Guys get paranoid. And then it's a shootout, and it just erupted. So
Yeah.
all these rules that were there to keep all those things from happening, from falling apart, were being broken.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. It fell apart.
Yeah.
And it's
Should be
Yes.
really just about money, and,
Yeah.
and on that regard,
Greed.
one of the things that Baroni was into, and another guy knew long ago, was chop shops, and they used to steal cars
Yeah.
and have people steal cars.
Yep.
They didn't just steal cars. What Baroni used to do is insurance jobs, like you put your car in Bridgeport,
yeah.
somebody takes it. So there's so many ways
Yeah.
to make money.
Yep.
Inside jobs,
Yep.
inside jobs with hijacking,
Yeah.
and I can talk about
Yeah.
with the wine business, stuff like that. Anything to make money. 'Cause
Right.
ultimately,
Well, one of the things with the cars back in the 70s, a little before me, but I heard about it. I was on the tail end of it. They would steal Lincoln Continentals, the big town cars,
Yeah.
okay, and change the number, the VIN number,
Yeah.
ship them to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Because the Arabian sheiks and oil magnates, they would pay for those like we paid for Mercedes Benz back then. They would pay $150,000 for a Lincoln.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome.
And
margin.
and they were putting them in those big cargo containers,
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
6, 7 at a time, and millions coming back. And one of the
Incredible.
guys, I won't mention his name, he's a friend, he's out there doing great, wound up probably one of the richest car dealers in the country,
Yeah.
you know, and he got his start involved in that. So,
Yeah. So yeah, so
Yeah.
many different
Yeah.
ways, but ultimately, I think any type of organized crime, whether even you talk about Yakuza and some of those
Yakuza,
Yakuza, some of the stuff that's going on, you guys being Hannibal TV, Baroni's told some of the stories when he was on with me about throwing fights. The guys
Right.
that were throwing fights, they
man.
come into the locker room before your fight, and they say, you're fighting Kazushi Sakuraba, and we're going to pay you this much, if you win, and you're going to pay me this much if you lose. So organized crime's always been about money.
Yeah.
'Cause then you could bet on the guy
Yeah.
that you know is
well,
going
they're
to
always,
win.
always
Yeah.
trying to corrupt sports, always trying to corrupt fights. Yeah,
But let's
Yeah.
face it,
Yeah.
everybody's about money.
Yeah.
Our society is all about money.
yeah. Well, what we say, just,
You know?
talking a little bit before, there's a certain percentage of every walk of life that
Yeah.
is corrupt.
Absolutely.
Be it races, be it organizations,
Yeah.
be it biker clubs, whatever it is, there's
And cops.
whatever.
Most cops are good, but there's a lot of cops that
Yeah.
are on the take.
Right. Of course. Yep. Well, as a matter of fact, that's a great segue from my buddy Tommy, one of those
Yeah.
security guys, Tommy Days, cop that I grew up with. They're working on some stuff with me and him because it's like angels with dirty faces.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the bad kid. I was supposed to,
Yeah.
be a fireman like my father. And he spearheaded the mob cop investigation. The 2 bad cops from New York that were
Yeah.
pulling for the family. He busted them. And now they're doing a series. Joe Coletto, my producer, is working on that also. So
Awesome.
I should have a role in that.
Yeah.
If you're looking, if you're watching, Joe, I better have a role in that.
Yeah. That's you
So-
could play a cop convincingly. Too.
Well, yeah. I played it.
Yeah,
When
you
I played
have
did you
before.
see when I played the corrupt cop
I
behind the
saw,
bar?
No, I saw.
I'm going to
it
send
in
you
the scene.
that.
I want to see
I got
that.
phenomenal reviews on it. But the funny thing is, afterwards they said you stole the show because they told me to be sarcastic, be yourself. So it's really easy playing
Yeah.
a corrupt cop.
Yeah.
I know how to talk to a cop.
Yeah.
But afterwards I told them, I said, do me a favor, don't sign me up for Hamlet yet.
Yeah.
Because they were really anything corrupt, a Wall Street guy, insurance, probably, a detective that's a little, street smart from New
Yeah.
York. So there's little things I'll do, but we'll see. I was going to be in a movie with Michael Madsen until this happened.
Yeah, you were telling me.
Yeah,
that.
and it's called Paper Chase. I hope that's right. Kelly will remember because she was managing me in it. I'll ask her before we go. And he was a detective. And I was going to be not a main, but one of the bad guys on the yacht
Yeah.
that he comes to see. So I don't know how much of a role it would have been, but, it was by Mike Tadros. He's
Yeah.
also a very good friend. He's a
Awesome.
huge producer. So we'll see. Let's hope it keeps going up.
Yeah.
So you want to go?
So what I'd like to do
Yeah.
is talk to you and the missus, talk to you and your
Yeah.
beautiful wife and
Cal.
manager. What I'll do is I'll
Come on.
stop it and then we can. Wait.